6:02. I'll call the January 17th meeting of the Tourism Commission to order. And roll call. Commissioner Pulford.
Present.
Commissioner Wiley is here. Commissioner Wesner.
Here.
Commissioner Darsky. Hughes. And Commissioner Schaefer is en route. Okay. We can stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so it's 6:03. I'll open up for citizen comment period. You gentlemen are here for a specific agenda, right?
Correct. We were here for the unfinished day.
I see no other citizens, so I'll close the citizen comment. So 3:30. Couple draft minutes of meetings that we have to approve. One from December 13th. One from January 4th, our special meeting. Any comments?
There's no changes. I would move to accept, do them separately, the December 13th as presented.
Okay.
And I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, January 3rd.
Again, no changes. I would move to approve as presented.
And I will again second.
And any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so then we'll make a change to the, well, no, I can do the Engage Franklin report because there was a question after last meeting as to the specific board members. And I do have clarification of that. There are 8 specific commissioners right now, plus Laura Nelson, who is the executive director. We had a change. Roy Watson was listed as the director, and he was the representative from Park Family Hotel Group. Park Family is the Mainstay and Sleep Inn, which has now opened, by the way. And the general manager of that is a gentleman by the name of Joe Lupoli. And we voted at our last Engage Franklin meeting to accept him instead of Roy Watson. I can provide this to you, John, as an email. We clarified that Joe Zimmerman, who is not the owner of Rock Venture, is the director on the board of directors. We have an opening for a common council member. We'd like to have a common council member, just as liaison to the city. And then we voted to add Tammy, and I don't recall her last name.
Brissette, which, yeah, we can get you the names, but
He's from Root River Bowling Center. And we have an invitation out to Bill Elliott, who is the president of Wisconsin Hotel and Lodging Association, also a Franklin resident. I don't know if he's...
I haven't heard of formal acceptance. We expect it, but we haven't confirmed yet.
But that would give us a board of 11 people. 2 are involved in restaurants, Mulligan's and Point After. Joe Olivo is the president of Rock Sports Group, which is not associated with Rock Venture Group that books teams into the ball field. And then we have Jim Picard, who is the investor and primary person for Lux Golf and Orchard View, new development. Myself as the Tourism Commission representative. I will summarize those in an email to you. And then that should eliminate any question what the content is. There is one person from Rock Ventures, that's Joe Zimmerman. He not the owner. I did bring up the concern that you had brought out in terms of if there's payments from a nonprofit to a for-profit, and they felt that there was no concern there, because Joe is not an owner.
Correct, but and we're quadruple checking that. I will say we did. If I can interject, we did hire separate counsel from what we had initially. That's just more familiar with this arrangement and that type of thing. And honestly, the counsel we had before was not very responsive, so this is much better. She's an attorney from Greendale, so she understands, what's going on and all that. So we're just going to have her quadruple check. We don't think it's an issue at all, because you're not paying somebody. The owners and the whatever are not benefiting directly from any payments. So, but we will make sure, absolutely sure of that.
I guess my only question, and I'm not picking, you just raised a question. Jim has an officer position with Rock, does he not?
No. And I will confirm that. I don't believe he does.
But he was listed in the paper as wasn't chairman, but he had a position that was listed in the paper.
I don't think he has a position with the Rock. I think he does with Lux Golf as a partner in Lux Golf, and then Orchard View, which is a completely separate thing. We can confirm that as well. And to clarify that, since we're talking about it, both the agreement that we came to in our agreement and the bylaws allow for up to 3 people. There just can't be a majority, which we're not even close to a majority. And I think we all agree the whole intent is that we can't have our board control the money with Rock people. So, and we're not even close to that. So technically, right now we have 1 in it. Even if Jim is, that's 2. So.
Yeah, so we're within the bylaws.
Correct.
And we talked about having those, like you said, reviewed by new council.
And we're gonna have this formally adopted and make sure we're all on the same page.
Welcome to the meeting, Lance.
Mark, thank you for jumping in there.
You're welcome.
Getting things started.
Just a quick update. We've approved the draft minutes, and I was going through the Engage Franklin update. I'm going to send a list of the board members, the board of directors, to John. He can distribute that to.
And then, Daryl, thank you for you just report on Engage Franklin. And I catch
Mark started, and I can finish off. Or Mark, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
No, that's all I had. Those were the 2 things I had taken
from the last
January,
meeting. Yeah,
January meeting. We can do a general update. But we talked about we wanted to go to closed session to talk about the actual amendment.
for the naming rights agreement.
The naming rights.
Oh, okay.
So we want to do that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talked about adjusting the schedule so that they could go, then we can go to closed session. But if there's if there's more.
Yeah, I was just gonna fill you in a couple new things. As far as new events and things that are coming up, the golf show is the biggest one coming up, and that's the first weekend in March. And I just want to make sure, on a very positive note, that's going to fill. I think it's probably going to fill even the 2 new hotels and Hampton. So
you said the golf
show, Milwaukee Golf Show. So I've been involved in that for a long time, 15, 20 years or whatever, and I've been to a ton of them, and it's packed all the time. So I think that's a really good thing that never would have happened if it wasn't for these efforts in Engage Franklin. And then there was also an announcement this week that there's going to be another music fest connected to Tacos and Tequila that same weekend, which will also guarantee full occupancy of the hotels for that weekend. So just those 2 things alone and full occupancy will add quite a bit to the revenue stream for Route X.
And the new hotel is open. The one
Great.
next to
Open
yeah, when
Monday.
I was here last week, I think you must have been dark close. Like it did. It just happened?
They open
Monday night.
All right.
Just in time for all the linemen to get when I say linemen, the utility guys come in, and they have guys from Indiana and wherever coming in to help them. So
Yeah.
Backup crews.
Well, good.
That's the Sleep Inn and
Mainstay.
Mainstay. It's through myself.
And I think that's it for,
Yeah, the bulk of our conversation was about the amendment, specific amendment. And as you indicated, we decided to change legal counsel to somebody that's more local, that's both going to be more responsive.
and totally independent of any other group that's associated. Any of them. So, yes.
How's staffing going? I mean,
That's a very good question. I'm starting to put some pressure on Laura. She said she has a couple good candidates. We're going to become more involved in that, and we need to, because there's certain things that haven't progressed the way we think they should. Website, the announcement, the certain other things, and God bless Laura, she's amazing or whatever, but with the RNC coming and her role in Visit Milwaukee, she's going to be a very, very busy person.
and that was the concern.
And I think it's unrealistic for her and all of us to expect that she could do the same thing with that role and do a good job at both of them. So she did say she has a couple good candidates. Just today she said she was trying to give me the job description, but I'm going to kind of take that and do the job description and finish it and do whatever we can to expedite that, because I feel it's very important to push that along and get the website up and the announcements of the public. We've seen more comments, and I feel it's very important to get that announcement out. And so
Our intention Monday night was to address that with Laura, but she had a personal. She wasn't there.
So Monday, Franklin had a board
Yeah.
we had a
Monday.
meeting on Monday.
Okay. And did you have the amendment extending the date?
I did. I
In front
actually
of you
sent
or
that
at
to
that
you.
meeting?
I know you were driving,
Okay.
but I just sent it to you.
Oh, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So both Laura and I had signed that, so you need to execute it and send it back. That'd be great. Hopefully we get that done way before that. That's we can.
And working on the website and
Facebook page we want to
Facebook page.
get up, and an announcement for public kind of announcement to really explain what we all know, I think, but
Thanks for coming in, Daryl.
sure.
So then we wanted to switch the agenda to, I guess, to these.
So we would take item 6 and move it up to, and make it basically item 5, because this is new business, and we'll just delete 5A, because I had a duplicate in there.
Same, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Again, it's been a month, hard to believe. Hopefully everyone had a good year and holiday season. But again, Andy Thompson with Franklin Public Schools, and I brought the person kind of overseeing the project.
Cordell Smith, it's nice to meet everybody. I'm the Athletic and Activities Director up at Franklin High School. I am somewhat responsible for any of the music you hear over the loudspeakers during football season, any of the loud crowds that hopefully we have. But I appreciate the time tonight. I appreciate getting the opportunity to meet you all and kind of elaborate on some of the projects we're working on up at the high school.
Unrelated thing, my wife works as the ticket sales, and she really appreciates your communication. She said it's the best communication she's had in a long time as far as what's going on in times and all that. So
That's
good
good.
job. Thank you.
Good to know. Who's your wife?
Barb Holfer.
Okay.
Me too.
Good. Well, I know Andy has spoken to you all previously. I think what would be helpful for me is just to know a little bit about what do you know about the project we have going on, where I can fill in gaps. I'm happy to walk through this entire perspectives we have for you all, but I also don't want to belabor your time. So I want to be able to provide as much information as possible to help you all kind of make a decision.
I think just basically, some of the main points of what your project is. But then again, we also are looking for what the budget of the project is, and what the funds that you're asking for are going to be used for specifically.
Yeah.
I'll bring you the mouse. Do you need the keyboard?
No keyboard, that's okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, hold this, Andy. I'll do my best.
I can
Okay, that's fine. Let's get past.
Yeah.
And do you have handouts that have the budget numbers on them?
I do not. No.
Okay, all right.
I can email
I was
those
going to
to
say
you.
I can provide it afterwards. If that's something that'd be helpful. But I'll dive into pretty much as you want me to. Numbers today. So Well, you'll see what the actual boards look like. Well, currently what we're kind of working on is 2 video scoreboards. One for multi-purpose field outside, which most people call a football field. As the athletic director and activities director, there's a lot of sports and activities that take pride out there. We have 2 soccer teams, 2 lacrosse teams, football teams. Pretty much everybody in our school uses that field. So that board is really kind of a center of the community right now, even though it's only just a scoreboard. We're also looking at inside of our basketball gym, the same thing. We have basically 1 indoor facility and 1 outdoor facility for all 29 sports that we have. So we're trying to do the best we can to give our kids opportunity, enhance their experience. This is something as a project that you look across to other schools, other districts. Everybody's getting them, and Franklin's still trying to get there with a lot of different things. This is a particular project that is multifaceted and that has an educational component to it, but also just has, when you come to the game on Friday night, a beautiful opportunity to continue to enhance the fields around Franklin. So I'll get to all those different pieces as we kind of walk through here. So just some of the numbers just to hit on. Obviously, we have seven conference opponents that we have, 400 member schools. We play just over 60 events a month between each one of these facilities, which brings in potentially 1,000 to 5,000 people, just depending on what the event is. 17,000 people on a yearly basis, just from our athletic events. And I guess the important caveat to kind of elaborate there, that does not include all of the recreational sports that come and use our fields as well. And that's where I think for this commission to consider, when you're talking about people coming from out of town, a lot of the pushback that we get from folks that are trying to come hold events here, whether they're from Franklin or not from Franklin, is just the ability to use a video scoreboard. But we get beat out a lot of times from a Whitnall or from an Oak Creek because we don't have the ability, especially in the summer months, I'd say from April to October, whenever weather cooperates, there's just not the ability for us right now to have a video scoreboard. We don't have that. So certain events that would like to happen, whether that's 2,000 people, 5,000. We have a huge band competition that happens every summer and in the spring. Brings about 5,000 people to the football field. But they cannot have video capability. Same thing kind of applies to our indoor facility, which right now we just don't have that. It's just a regular scoreboard. We don't have anything inside of there that can project any video. Many of you have probably seen yourselves when you go to Pfizer Forum, if you go to Oak Creek High School, if you go to a lot of places, they have replay video. We don't have the capability to do that right now, and that's what I'll get into a little bit as well. And you can keep going. And please stop me if you got any questions. I'll keep on going. This is the educational component of this video scoreboard that we're really, really excited about. We have within our school, it's called Saber Roar Productions. It's our video production component of our education, our curriculum. These kids, they create a weekly TV show called Saber Roar. They're getting practical and applicable experience working on video production. And the company we're working with, Daktronics, to put this board up. If that board and when that board ever goes up, these students are responsible for being the workers that are going to work at all these different events. So what they're getting is kind of multifaceted in that they are getting a curriculum that comes directly from people who are professionals in this field, who are going to learn directly and teach our students how to work this scoreboard. So that when the time comes that these kids, we really hit on it, Franklin College and Career Readiness. This is another example of a trade that doesn't really get thought of all that much. Where some kids, college is not the direct route. It's a trade school. It's, for some people it's plumbing, it's carpentry. Video production is another major one that's just come in the last 10 to 15 years. This board and putting this board up gives a lot of our kids the opportunity to now get into broadcasting. The future Jim Nance might be at Franklin, but right now we can't do broadcasting for events. We also have just all the behind the scenes people with video and live TV. All those are capabilities that this board would have and to teach our kids how to run them. So by the time they leave high school, some of these kids, they're ready to go work at the University of Wisconsin and run their big boards. Same board they use is probably a little bit bigger, but same board that they would use. So that's the educational component. that for us is extremely important when we're talking to folks about this. It's not just putting a cool board up. The fact that we're giving kids an education to it as well. On here, you can see all the different ways that kids can utilize this board. There's, like I said, a radio aspect, there's the marketing aspect, TV production, and just making the whole thing come to fruition. I think especially during COVID, we realized that we had to get better as an industry with just streaming games. And we're still figuring out how to do that now. We got all our games on YouTube. The next iteration of that is how do we get some seniors on that broadcast to kind of talk through the games, talk through the baseball game, or whether it's a football game on a Friday night. That's a huge opportunity for us as well. This is a picture of what the board would look like. And I can I'll go back and forth when we talk budget as to how it says anchor partner up there, and I'll kind of jump into what that means in a little bit. That's our outdoor board. This would be an example of what our indoor board would look like. Culver's is the example up there, just so we just threw Culver's in there, but everybody we show this to, we try to make it a little more personal so you can see what eventually it would look like. As of right now, you can see, again, just a scoreboard. That's all we have, just the normal scoreboard you're used to seeing. This is our concessions area where, again, folks who come on as partners in this venture, they're going to have branding up in the school, going to have the ability to have their name on it so people know who's helping our kids. What are the companies, what are the businesses, the commissions that have put money towards this to help us help these kids.
This is envisioned as an electronic sign?
This is just vinyl
That's a
sign.
static sign.
Yep.
Static.
Yep. And this is outdoors. This is our concession stand outdoors, where we have some of our, again, founding partners, and I'll come to kind of like the different levels of partnership that we're having. And these are our anchor partners that are going to, again, be right above our concession stand. These are just preliminary in that regard. So jumping into the different levels of partnership that we're kind of pursuing right now. First one is our anchor partner. And we have 4 anchor partners. It's a $15,000 a year commitment for 5 years. What comes with that, obviously I don't need to dive into every single piece of this, but it's a lot more of the video content that would be produced by these kids. A lot of the companies we have spoken to about this, they have their own 45-second commercial that they like to play. They'd send that to us, and we would give them the ability to put it out one time during a football game, during a basketball game. If it's a local business, a local restaurant, it gives them the opportunity to, market themselves. But again, to show people who's actually committed to the project and who, at the end of the day, is helping our kids put forth the effort and the experience to get out in the real world. So that's our anchor partnership. It's just the biggest one. It comes with the most expansive package of different marketing things, digital content. If you go roll back up to the picture. No, go back up. Well, that one too. We'll go back up. This one. So those are the 4 anchor partners, and those are static signs that would be up year-round. I think that's an important distinction. Those are not, when the scoreboard shuts off, those names are still out there. I think that's really important because that's practices, that's games, that's people just driving by the field. Those names will always be up there. Same thing with our gym. Those are our anchor partners, always up there. You can keep on rolling down, Andy. These are our founding partners. Again, those would be whatever companies come in at that founding partner level. And then we have our premier and our anchor, and these are our anchor partners. Those are the big ones that'll be right above the concession stand as well. Again, there'll be more than this, but we're just kind of trying to show where this would all go and how it would look. And then you go to our founding partnership. That's the $8,000 a year for 5 years. So it's kind of like the next tier down, if you will. One of the big differences with this is just the digital content, where your name is, things like that. We have been pretty flexible with other folks and just in what these packages look like. This is what we have offered, and we've been pretty movable on that, just because this is what we've seen in other places. This is what a lot of people do. We've just chosen to our hands ours a little bit. And ultimately, between the anchor and the founding, at the end of the day, the price difference is $15,000 a year and a 5-year commitment. Or the anchor, and then the founding is $8,000 a year, 5 years. I think, again, it's important, Andy, keep on rolling down. I don't want to miss anything here. I think that kind of wraps it up. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing when it comes to this commission, and I'm sure a lot of things that you're considering from a budget perspective, is just how does this bring people to Franklin? How does this enhance the view of Franklin? I think Franklin. I'm from Mequon originally, went to Homestead. I think Franklin has a tremendous opportunity, and what I grew up in is just this culture of constantly getting better, and I see the same thing in Franklin, and that's why I felt so at home when I first started there. There's a tremendous opportunity to continue to enhance all of our facilities as we continue to try to meet the demand of the amount of kids that we have that are passionate about band and passionate about, obviously, the sports and football and all the things that go on there. But even the clubs that we have that people don't think about. We have forensics clubs. We have mock trial clubs. Our kids are doing everything on a daily basis to just get to that next level. And I think this piece is an opportunity not only for Franklin to continue to show the investment in its kids, but also to enhance the partnership that I think the city and the school already has. It's just bringing it to kind of another level in order to ultimately help our kids and give them the absolute best experience that they can have. So, any questions, like I said, I'm happy to elaborate, dive deeper into anything. Andy, I took up most of the time, so I'm sorry if you want to.
No, they heard from me a month ago, so kind of let you share. Yeah, I think that you summarize everything, and I think we're open to doing anything too. And I think that what this could look like is it could look like a lot of events for just community that could kind of bring people to kind of showcase our amazing facilities. Let's say you start doing, I don't know, watch parties for Brewers game in the summer. You do some other kind of things, the first few Packers games, or any sort of event you could kind of host that now has the capability to do. That could be a whole nother brainstorming session of just ways to kind of bring people in. But the technology, as Cordell said, needs to kind of be available and be there to kind of do it. So this is kind of like the first phase, and then later on, a lot of this that we're giving you is in partnership with Daktronics. But I know and I believe that Cordell will commit to coming up with things that kind of we can do as long as it can be done and kind of done in obviously a safe and kind of effective manner for everybody to have a great opportunity.
So, question from the Shameless Commerce Division. These events bring people into town. Okay, what are you seeing and what do you foresee? And you touched on it. You're able to compete more effectively for interscholastic competitions and events. So does that translate at all into people staying overnight in the hotel?
Yeah, I think there's a couple answers to that. The first one would be, it's a yes, because I think where we are right now, Franklin has the ability to win, to draw a crowd. A lot of times right now we can't. Part of the reason we don't get bigger playoff games, a level 3, a level 4, where you're getting 5,000-6,000 people from way up north, is just a facility thing. We just don't have right now the ability from a score. They look at scoreboards. They look at how much seating you have. They look at, obviously we have the team to do it. We'd love to have 5,000 people up at our field, but we just don't have some of those things. And ultimately, when you're playing against bigger competition, all it does is draw prestige to your school. So sometimes, even when Franklin's not playing, which is another opportunity that we currently cannot do, you might have 2 teams from the middle of Wisconsin that have to come play at Franklin because it's a neutral site, and they're going to look to stay right next to the field or as close as they possibly can. So that's one way that right now we can't get to. But I would say the third level of that is also, again, as I bring up our rec department. We have a lot of events that we try to have happen at our school, whether it be those basketball tournaments where you see hundreds of kids. Those are 2, 3, 4-day tournaments, and those parents are not going back and forth. I'm sure you all, on some level, have been a part of them. You're going to stay in La Crosse for a couple of days. You're going to stay in Madison for a couple of days. And again, how do these boards translate to that? These are opportunities to enhance what our facilities look like. When people walk in our gym right now, our gyms look a little bit older. That's the reality of it. We know that, and we dress them up as best we can. But when people are coming in looking to bring their tournaments to Franklin, they are looking at what type of infrastructure that we have. So I'd say the translation to how is it helping people think about stay overnight is just partially the prestige of our school and people wanting to bring events there that are multi-day. But aside from that, you also have the ability to attract bigger events that currently we cannot have because we don't have video capability in a lot of our facilities. So the ability to bring more people here, have that prestige to say, let's go to Franklin. They got a big board. They got a big, nice board. They got hotels right down the street. That is people's classic thinking of a sports weekend. And that's what we're continuing to look to add on to.
We have a form for, and I think we have a version of that. They've got it. You have it?
I sent it to Andy, and I can send it to you again. It's the guideline. It's not actual.
That's true, for guidelines for submitting a request for funding. And so you touched on some good points, and that would be really making a solid link between overnight stays and the this project at the high school. And it escaped me. I had another. Oh, and maybe, and I'm just trying to help guide this a little bit. Maybe a connection or how you envision content being and tournaments being organized. You touched on some things like we can do this with our boards, and we're going to run these tournaments. Well, who's doing that?
Yeah.
You know, how do we know any of that's going to come to fruition?
Yeah.
Because you have you have this new technology
Yeah.
on the wall. So that would be good to see that connection.
Yeah.
You know, in your
For sure. I would also say, if I could just add on and kind of answer that question a little bit, that question, the answer to that question totally depends on what it is. If it's a youth group, like a youth basketball group that's wanted, which we've had teams ask us to come here and have a 20-team tournament. We figure out who's running it because usually it's the group themselves. The board would obviously it'd be students or us. So that there's a manpower thing to it as well of just who can be there. But that's something you figure out when you're asking for something nice in a community. You figure out how to make it work. And that's what
I'm also going to refer. Have you talked to Engage Franklin?
I do not think so.
Daryl's the president of Engage Franklin. The reason I say that is because one of their missions is to inventory all the assets in Franklin that might be used for visitation, right? So all the ball fields are there, all the sports facilities, and if I'm hearing you right, you're thinking of the high school as a sports facility that will, also hold other events. Well, part of their mission is to know about those kind of, what capabilities you have, and also then to promote that. And of course, the Tourism Commission is funding Engage Franklin to do those promotional activities.
Yeah.
So we're doing that already. So it would be good to, at least and maybe, Daryl, maybe that asset, the high school and football field, has already been inventoried as a potential venue for other events outside of specific sporting events.
And I mean, to some extent it has, but it would be very helpful to know two things. One is the capability, and what is the willingness to allow use of those facilities? Because in the past, sometimes that's been very restrictive. My past experience being here. So we need to identify both of those things.
Yeah. So. And right now, I'd say like the layered challenge of Franklin is just like what I kind of started with. We only have so much room. I think we as a school, and I could speak for the athletic department, we want to have as much stuff as possible, but we only have a gym and a field to utilize. So it's like we got our feeder programs, we got our
smaller
teams,
pool and all.
But we'll definitely connect.
Tennis facilities.
Yes.
Can go on and on.
Yes. Don't even get me started. We won't do that tonight. But we're working on it. So, yeah.
I have a question too about the field. Would that field be possibly be able to be used for concerts, to bring in outside? I'm not talking about school concerts, but outside concerts as well.
It definitely could be.
Is that the kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, my experience, I was in college athletics for 6 years before I came to Franklin. And really, any turf field, if it's built correctly, which ours has been, can be fitted to host really any event. Obviously, there's logistics with what would need to go over the field, just like a graduation with high heels and all type of things and equipment. But our field is ready to host pretty much anything. But it kind of go back to who would want to host, at Franklin right now, and they don't even have a video board. But definitely has a capability from a field perspective. Yes.
I'm just thinking back to, it's been a number of years now, where the Beach Boys performed at the sports complex.
Mm-hmm.
That brought in a lot of people from a wide area.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I mentioned this to Andy last time he was here, as far as, not leaving any stone unturned, as far as trying to find sponsors. Has there been an outreach to the city itself, City of Franklin, on this project? We're a commission, and we've got a very specific mission, right, and use of a taxing source, but the city also keeps 30% of that same taxing source.
Mm-hmm.
So has anyone talked to the city directly about this?
So that's good to know kind of how that all kind of works. Kind of like, the commission, that's definitely that in mind, kind of separate from.
And then, I know there's been some discussions between the city and the high school about traffic and about venues and things, and it just seems like this might be something that they take a look at with, some funding sources.
Yeah.
Is your timing on this based on funding?
Somewhat. We have, I'll just say yes for the sake of this conversation.
Sure.
Obviously, there's about a 5-month gap when we have to order material and get it installed to have it ready for the start of next school year. So that puts us right at kind of March, April is when we to have commitments from folks.
Sure.
So you want the sponsorship to pay for sign itself, and on an ongoing basis, is that an opportunity to bring ad revenue into the school district? Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Correct. Yeah.
So overall budget and use of the funds from the sponsorships, this in on that?
Yeah. So the initial use of the funds is obviously just raw material. It's getting all the electronics equipment, the actual board itself. That's where a majority of it is going. And then over time, when you get to the years, or definitely in the 5, most of that is being used for a lot of the upkeep of the board. Same thing. That's because it's great to get it in, but once it gets in, using that and the custodial work on it, specifically in the electrical work, is where a lot of those funds go.
In budget?
Total for the whole board?
Basically, the cost
Yeah,
of the boards.
it's just over 500,000.
For both boards, each side?
Yep, that's for both. The nice part too is that if the opportunity ever comes that there's a new facility, whatever that may be, you would have the ability to move these boards, whether that's the gym. It's not as if hey, we want to put a new building up and we just paid for this nice board in here. Well, we just move it right over to the new building.
Other questions? Gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
you all.
opportunity.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah, John, I will send over just kind of something you can disseminate to the group then with more formal stuff, kind of to answer those questions and specifically what Lance said. Kind of as well.
Okay.
Out of that.
Don't get too far. I'll come on back up.
Yeah,
You
but
got
yeah.
some good popcorn for you?
We're around.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Stop
all.
and see us up.
Thank you. Will do. Thank you.
Pardon?
Trying to
Yeah.
pick up where we are in the agenda.
Yeah.
So,
I know those all the time.
Yeah.
unfinished business, Franklin.
Yeah, we had a good discussion there.
Guideline.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's great. Really great.
Really,
We can take a look at it now, we can take a look at it after we're done with C. We can take C.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, Sue there will be our general
Okay.
manager.
Sue
George.
I'm gonna send her
move
this.
to see under
Okay,
unfinished business.
yeah, okay.
Is it okay to
Yeah, we'll talk.
move, we'll skip,
All right.
for now, we'll skip agenda item of
Thank
5B
you.
and go into 5C, the Engage Franklin Naming Rights Assignment.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right. Then to, need to read this. Why do I? Mental block when it comes to this.
Nobody likes
That's
reading
right.
it.
I'm hoping for a different answer.
I've never seen anybody jump up and volunteer to read this.
All right, so the Tourism Commission may enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute and 19.851E, excuse me, to deliberate upon the Franklin Field naming rights agreement between the Franklin Tourism Commission and Milwaukee Milkmen Baseball LLC, effective July 1st, 2020, and a proposed tourism entity agreement between the Franklin Tourism Commission and Engage Franklin, the negotiation of provisions and terms, and the investing of public funds in relation thereto for competitive or bargaining reasons, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it entertain a motion. Closed session.
Moved into closed session.
I will
Okay,
second.
motion from Ed and a second from Barbara. All those in favor?
I
Closed
Aye.
session. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Now enter closed session.
We
Make
have a,
myself some notes.
we have a motion that we're ready to present once
You
we're
are-
out of
you are
closed session.
recording.
I don't think
Is
we
there a motion
have to
necessary
vote.
at this
Or is
point?
that a motion necessary, right? Or are we?
There's no
You are
motion
recording.
necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to end closed session and return to open session?
So moved.
And
Got it.
second.
Moved by Ed, seconded by Barbara. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are back in open session. I don't think, help me out here, whether we need to discuss this, but I don't think there's a
Okay,
was
We
generated.
didn't take any action.
Didn't take any action.
no action.
No discussion. All right. Going back up to unfinished business, item B. So we were presented the last meeting with a guidelines form that was generated a few years ago. We have it. You're going to be providing it to folks from Franklin High School on the video board project. I think it's still on here because and correct me if I'm wrong, there was maybe some discussion about those are guidelines. Are we developing a form that's based on those guidelines for someone to just basically fill out, or we just sticking with the guidelines as they were presented to you last meeting, right? Yeah, that was in the packet.
Yeah, the guidelines were,
Yeah, guidelines.
but it was suggested that we take a look at New Berlin's applications, and the written one that you have is a small grant program, and I don't think that really applies. It's really kind of more of a guideline like we have, but the New Berlin Room Tax Grant Program, which is also in your packet, that really kind of lays out a grid that people fill out. And you can put whatever you want into the grid,
Right.
the boxes that people have to fill in, and that way they don't necessarily get.
Right.
It's really the same kind of information. Just depends on what format you want to use to gather it.
So everything that's in this first document would show up in this
Yeah.
application.
Right. And it gives them it helps them, collect their thoughts, organize the information, and maybe and not forget something that would be important for the community.
Plus, you can always look at the end results after and see if it met the expectations.
Yeah. And New Berlin looks at, they call it room tax grant because they look at anything where somebody's coming to the commission or the city of New Berlin and would like to use room tax dollars. They're considering that a grant to that. That's basically the term they're using for the funding to inquiries. Yeah.
See, like they have a match. They always wanted to make sure because we used to get groups and they expect the grant to fund their whole project. And then, what happens if you don't? Well, then we don't do the project if you don't get the grant. So
So you were asking for at least a 10% match.
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of. I like this. Nice form.
Mhm.
You now all have this in your packet and take a look at it. You have, so John, you have this Word document? Is a PDF that you have?
The PDF that we download. Well, actually, no, it's fillable.
Fillable PDF.
Yes, so yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, it is PDF, but it's
Okay.
I can always check and see what editing and adopting we can do Adobe Acrobat.
Sure.
Because we have a license, it's not just Reader.
Okay. So you can go in and modify a document. Yeah. What
New
would-
Berlin didn't copyright that, right?
That was the city, I don't know.
Well, so what do you think about this idea of a form like this for people that, Forte or whoever might come our way?
Kind of forces them to quantify what they're going to do and
The form might reinforce that it's information we want more than Word doc.
Yeah, right. So, how do you think? Yeah, I mean, so am I hearing that we like the idea of a form like this, and if we could just take instead of reinventing, take a lot of what's here, maybe customize some of it just based on our particular situation, and roll something like this out in either a fillable PDF or Excel spreadsheet that's got locked cells. This is the way it prints out.
now they did theirs, I think, annually. So they had a time period. And they had I disagreed with some of the things that they did. And then they had a committee that went through and decided who was worthy and who wasn't worthy. But it had to be, and then you got the thing here, it says due by.
Due by March 9th, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to have a designated period or if it's just open, that when somebody has an idea, if funds are available.
This should be an open-ended thing. We're not under time.
Other than
give
we've
us-
got budget considerations, maybe towards, as we get October, November, we've got, let's say you receive a lot of grant applications, like, wow, 4 of these are really solid and a little bit more than what we budgeted. Now I suppose we could tell them, we'll think about this for the next budget, depending on when it comes in, but there would be a component to that, Mark, where, now that you have the dollar amount, you know what you'd like to do. Maybe a little different than what you budgeted.
And we'd want to have a cap on what a grant would be worth.
Oh, you mean like an individual cap on grants? Up to this.
I mean, here's what happened, like when New Berlin did theirs. So they had, at one point it was like $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
$10,000 grant. They get 20 requests. Right?
Yeah.
So then the commission that they had at the time would go through the first one. Yeah, that's good, do it. And by the time they reached the fifth one, they're out of funding.
Right.
And everybody else goes, well, what about mine?
We would have been considered first. We'd been in there, yeah.
But I mean, you have to, because we have limited supply of funding,
Right.
I think we'd want to have some kind of a, not that you give somebody 20 grand and then somebody goes, I want 5, well, now it's all gone, so.
Right. Sort of lends itself to the idea of having some sort of limit, a time limit, so that you get all your requests in and then you can evaluate them, and knowing what your budget is, you can almost, you can look at that and say, well, the best way to spend grant money that we got.
All the local groups knew what the time frame.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we're in agreement that we like this idea, and we want to make it our own, and like I said, use this format, but make a few tweaks for the city of New Berlin, Miller. Because I do like the idea of this. right? And the information it's asking for. How do we get somebody to work on this? Take some action. The city's got Adobe Act, they've got the Pro probably where they can actually modify, so they can take a PDF and deconstruct it and rebuild it. But some thought has to, so then who's making decisions on what goes where, and what are you saying? What are your thoughts on it?
Start loading in what's in your guidelines into boxes. There's going to be some art to your 4 pillars because those are themes.
Right.
But they could just as well be questions. How do you meet these? Say it has to meet 3 out of them. No, it has to fall into one of the 4 pillars. So,
Right.
So name your pillar is the box. And there's an introduction. Fill in the boxes. Put a draft together. But it's basically getting working. Things like when you want your deadlines, when do you want the application round to open, maybe something else that you have to take a look.
I think I'll mention just this, moving to a form, which has me circling back to our this mission's done early on. And the mission statement, the core values are helpful in these 4 pillars. But as you read through these 4 pillars, this is where some of these pillars don't necessarily directly support sort of the funding, the funding guidelines that we have, right, that are imposed on us by state statute. So they're a little open-ended, So this does allow people to look at any one of these and go, well, branding, for example, that one's fairly wide open. We brand Franklin as a place that has a high quality of life for both residents and visitors. So under the branding pillar, a lot of projects qualify or would qualify. I don't know if that's our intent to open. I'm just wondering about these core values. And I'm just going by the discussions we've had in the last year and a half about what kind of projects qualify for room tax dollars and what we want to do. And I'm not so sure that this sort of helps funnel. Some of these core values don't necessarily help funnel those requests. That's the only comment I'll make about it.
And maybe I just load the data or questions into the boxes. And you all take a look at these core values and these guidelines and questions and see if that's what you really want to do.
Well, if you look at your small grant thing, I would take exception with number 4. But the grants are available for some of the following: tourism, educational, holiday promotions.
Mm-hmm.
I would something else other than limited property improvements because I don't want to get into that. But
right.
Well, I wouldn't think we'd load the small grant program in New Berlin. I think we'd use. Isn't this is really what the tourism?
Well, but what I'm saying is how to funnel instead of the market brand.
Right.
These are the kind of activities
right.
that we would look at.
Because that's an important one. One of the things that Tourism Commission do, right, and DMOs do with room tax dollars, it's viable and it's an important function. Is they'll fund or provide seed money for new festivals and get it off the ground, and launch it. And then, it grows and brings more people in, and communities do that all the time. And it's a good use of tax dollars. So that would be, under holiday event promotions. Educational activities, I'm not sure what that all encompasses, but tourism activities, obviously.
Well, that could be cultural.
What's that?
Cultural.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's still more event related, right? We're talking about events, right? Well, how about, we've done this in the past. the way this, John, the way this document was generated was a work session. The commission just said, hey, we're going to spend 15, 20 minutes, just talking about this document, and we're going to come to some agreement. And somebody said, okay, I'll take all that information, I'll put it, in a format that we all kind of agreed, and we'll have it for the next go-around. I would like to suggest we do something like that. Can we have a little work session on this? If John is able to use Adobe to at least give us something to work with, and then we do a little work session to tighten it up the way we, with everyone's input, and we call it good. And,
It's a motion, I would second it.
okay, well,
I make that motion then.
and what is that motion, member?
What you said.
Just have a work session to review
Yes,
your
that the commission
guidelines.
have a work session to prepare some guidelines for funding.
Right?
How's
We
that
put
sound?
and would that be on the next meeting's agenda? Where the work session, would it take place during our normal? commission?
Yes, at the next session of the,
Which
Next
is when?
Third
whenever.
Wednesday this week.
Oh, I'll be
Usually
back.
decide that last.
I'll be
Yeah.
back then.
Okay, you will be. That puts us February.
I won't be here in February.
12th, I think.
Mhm.
Will you be around in March? I don't know how quickly you want to get after. I guess what we're doing, Barbara, is you've made it a motion, and we probably should have said discussion, any discussion, which didn't happen, but say any discussion with what Barbara's mentioned, and some of that discussion now that's taken place is timing,
Timing.
and taking into account Mark's not going to be here, and I think it'd be important that it would be great if all of us could. I think this is important.
Mhm.
You'd be back in March.
Yeah, I'll be back certainly by the 7th, but maybe the 6th.
So how do you?
So 20,
Yeah, what date are we scheduled for March?
you're scheduled for 21st of February. You're looking at March now?
Well,
February is the 21st.
Barbara, just in discussing this motion, I'll just put out there that February's meeting could be the form as, the guts of the new form in a format that we can modify going forward. We have that. Use that to make our notes and think about it so that the March work session, you've had a chance to look at it. You're like, you know what? Okay. Thinking about this.
right.
Structure.
Okay, so the motion,
So yeah, could
the
we
motion has,
revisit that motion?
how should we phrase that? Was there a second to the motion? There was, oh darn.
What date did you have on? Because basically you're preparing the guidelines.
Yeah, I said for this
Work session.
next meeting, I think, was the motion. We will be working on it at the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
So the motion could stand.
Motion
Okay.
is work on motion. As you written it down is that commission will
Create a draft.
create a draft
Right. Create a draft
in the next
of the
meeting,
application.
February meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it there.
And approve it in March.
The
Well.
work session and, well, it would be the input side of this for that March session.
You're welcome to email me. I just won't be sitting in a chair here in Wisconsin.
So the work session actually could take place
Yeah.
in February. But then the final work product, March. So is that your amendment, or is that your motion, Barbara?
That sounds like my motion, yes.
All right.
Sounds
Does
like
that
my
sound like
second.
your
It
second?
sounds like it's second.
Okay.
So
So
we're drafting the format or we're drafting the.
I think the
Yeah,
format,
Yeah.
it's a format,
what I
because the
thought.
guidelines sort of
Yeah,
are here
exactly.
Right, I think
already.
you said format.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold a work session to prepare, to draft format.
Mhm.
okay, and there's been a second by Ed. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion carried. All right. And John, thank you for the backup here in our packet with the information and a copy of our mission statement. Voucher approvals. So I believe then we do have, Laura sent the Engage Franklin final $20,000 for the 2023 funding commitment, right?
Yep.
So you have it. We already approved these dollars. This is just, we were making payments as we went. This is the final installment. So, any discussion on this voucher or this invoice? Entertain a motion to approve it. Yes.
I should probably have on the board of the receiving party.
Oh,
Can we make a motion with just
We still have quorum.
seven
Yeah,
quorum,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
just won't, okay,
Right.
you'll just abstain, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you still have a motion, and I'll second.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we approve the voucher invoice number 20241.
I second that.
Made and seconded to approve the invoice from Engage Franklin, the amount of $20,000. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Got one abstention. Motion carried. Next meeting. So, what is that?
February 21st.
Like I said, if you want to email me stuff, I'm going to be available. I'm just not going to be physically here in town.
Well, we need your input on it. City regulations, ordinance, well, can't participate in the meeting by video.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah, okay.
but if you had a form you wanted me to look at for spell check and stuff.
Yeah.
You couldn't, Mark,
Background,
directly
yeah.
back with you, John? Couldn't you two?
Yeah.
Yeah, he and I can
You could
exchange.
funnel information, right?
Okay.
So we're all set for February 21st? We don't need to set that as
You regularly schedule those for third Wednesday.
and
Adjourn.
Art, do I have a second?
A second.
Second. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?